to welcome all of you sitting here today. On my far left, we have Mr. Bola Sase, the Deputy Director and Health Indications, AFC. And then we have Mr. Adma Sutadase, the President and Managing Group Director of TDB Group. On my right, we have Mr. Mahadaman, the Managing Director for Indian Trade. And I'd like to please call you up on stage and take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Anish. Can you hear me? Okay. Very good morning to you all. Honourable Minister Kumar Suratan, Minister of Financial Services and Economics of Mauritius, Mr. Wale Asase, Deputy Director and Head of Education of AFC, Mr. Adama Sutadase, President, Group Managing Director of TPD, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, all existing protocols duly observed. Very good morning to you all. On behalf of AEB Trade, it's a great privilege and pleasure for me to welcome you all to the 6th edition of the Africa Pension Funds and Alternative Investments Conference, taking place once again here in this beautiful country and a new venue. I'm sure you're all aware we're very much in a new world order, interesting picture globally, rising interest rates, increased inflation, both domestic and imported, the geopolitical backdrop of Russia and Ukraine's war is still ongoing. We're indeed in an unprecedented era of risks and uncertainty. We remain hopeful that Africa will remain resilient, with the average GDP forecasted to grow at 4% over the next 2 years, and demand surge for all its commodities globally likely to continue. I'm glad to report we have over 150 delegates in person and about 30 joining us virtually, all from 15 countries and over 40 speakers, and 20 pension funds, which I believe is a record for participants participating both in person and virtually. It's also really nice to see a number of familiar faces. I indeed look forward to making new friends. By way of background, the objective of this conference is to provide a platform for knowledge building and exchange of ideas to promote the role of pension funds in advancing economic development of the continent by showcasing credible alternative investments with proven sustainable returns, and also to provide a platform for networking and, of course, business development. The theme for this year's edition is responsible investing and diversification strategies in low growth environments. This has been carefully chosen to reflect the current state of play, particularly the implications for African pension funds considering the unfavorable global macroeconomic outlook. Over the next 2 days, we have seasoned industry experts and stakeholders that will dive into the details, including the anticipated pension fund reforms in their respective jurisdictions, the creation of enabling environments to deploy pension funds for domestic development and regional development, the emerging trends such as the where growth and opportunities will lie over the next few years. I would like to take this opportunity to express our profound appreciation to the Government of Mauritius, represented here by the Honourable Minister, and other stakeholders such as the Economic Development Board, Mauritius Finance, FSC, and our local team, C Communications led by Core Companies, for all the background work. Our utmost gratitude also goes to our sponsors for this year's edition: AFC Platinum Sponsor, TDB Group Silver Sponsor, Afri-Asia and Ellis Advisors as associate sponsors. We're also grateful to all of the industry associations and partners for this conference. We appreciate your moral, technical, and financial support, without which the conference will not have happened. So please join me in giving a big round of applause. Thank you very much. As it is a custom, we will have quite a number of social functions happening throughout the event, including the invitation-only business breakfast, coffee breaks, lunches, cocktail receptions. So we encourage you to actively participate, to network with your peers, and to also make use of the digital app of the event that has all the information. Pension funds will play a significant role in the economic development of the continent. Throughout this event, we will continue to advocate for collaboration to provide insight into various developments that have taken place to enable the formation of mutually beneficial partnerships. And going forward, we will look to broaden the conversation to include insurance funds and also to invite other pension funds from developed markets to hear their perspectives and experiences in terms of asset allocations to emerging markets and frontier markets. In closing, before inviting our keynote speakers to make one remark, I would like to once again thank you very much for your support, for your attention, and I wish you a successful conference. And with that, I would now like to move on to invite some of our key keynote speakers and sponsors to deliver their remarks. Kicking off with Sanjeev Gupta, Executive Director of Financial Services by AFC, a short video from Sanjeev, and then followed by Mr. Wale Sese, who will make a few remarks. So can we please have that goodwill message from Sanjeev Gupta? Thank you.
Before, will hopefully know and remember that I am a highly passionate attendee to this particular conference, and I truly believe that this particular forum that has been created offers us, people who are developing and investing in Africa, a unique platform to talk and have conversations and find ways of collaborating. So it is therefore regrettable that I am not being able to be there personally, and the reason is completely beyond my control. It's got to do with my passport, which never came back on time for me to be able to make the trip. Be as it may, thank you to the organizers for allowing me to give you this brief address. And essentially, I just wanted to touch on some common points of interest for us to dwell upon over the next 2 days. Clearly, we are in a period of history where we are coming on the back of 3 or 4 years of unprecedented volatility, unprecedented complexity, unprecedented challenges. And clearly the last 12 months has made things even worse with the interest rate cycle that we are in, the inflation period that we are in, and the Russia-Ukraine war that has further put a lot more challenges than we would have anticipated. So from an African context, I think for all of us who have Africa as our common relevance and common business area, I think we will all have known the challenges that we've faced as a result of the events over the last few years. Liquidity in general, capital particularly, fiscal balances and challenges by the government to balance that, the general inflationary environment, the general food security environment, all of this has affected us terribly. Now, we are all our people who have invested and developed and done business on the African continent for years. And I think we all therefore know a thing or two of how to manage adversity and how to make adversity work for us in terms of in times of extreme distress. So you'll be pleased to know that Africa Finance Corporation, an organization that most of you know about, Pan-African multilateral institution. We have investments in 34 plus countries. We have invested in excess of $10.5 billion, $11 billion over the last decade and a half on the continent. So you'll be pleased to know that in spite of all the challenges we faced, 2022, our financial year, which ended in December, we had a good year. Our results are going to be announced shortly. Our key criteria on which we measure ourselves, be it asset growth, be it non-performing loans, be it cost of lending, be it the number of projects we've done and the impact it's created, the dividends that we have paid to our shareholders, the return on equity that we have managed to have for our investors. You'll be pleased to know that all of that in 2022 was at a record high, which shows that in spite of the challenges, the corporation managed its affairs extremely well. And a thorough vindication of all this was very recently, a couple of weeks back, Moody's, the rating agency, reviewed our corporation's results, our balance sheet, our solvency, our liquidity, our operations, and reaffirmed their A3 rating, which is a huge relief to us, firstly, but also a big confirmation to us that the way we do business, and the way we've done business, and the way we wish to do business on the African continent will still remain very solid, very robust, and it will not compromise on our standards, which is why the rating has remained unchanged in spite of so many other corporations and governments on the continent during this period having suffered a different fate. Now, why all this is important for this conference is, you will have heard when I have spoken in the previous conferences, that AFC as an institution is a unique institution because it was created with African capital. African sovereigns, African pension funds, African banks, African private sector capital came together to create this institution. So the foundation of this corporation is around how do we attract African capital to come into Africa's development requirements and provide the platforms around which Africa's transformation can happen. And that is why, for me, this morning, the message that I have is that AFC continues to want to work with African capital. During the last 12 months alone, we successfully attracted new capital from new pension funds, the South African pension fund, the Seychelles pension fund, the Cameroonian pension fund, even Mauritius' own pension fund became shareholders in AFC, which shows that they have understood the business model of AFC, they appreciate how AFC does business, and they see it. They see investing in AFC as a way of diversifying their own portfolios, earning steady returns, and most importantly, not taking some of the risks that pension funds are not designed to take. So the message that I would really like to leave you with is that we are keen to work with the pension and the life insurance industry across the continent because they represent the continent's largest savings pool. We take note of the fact that a lot of these funds continue to be invested in non-diversified type of basis, into equities and government treasuries and government bonds, investing into alternative assets, which is a global phenomenon, investing in alternative assets, which is then a way of diversifying your risk profile and your asset base, is something that we need to do more in Africa. And most importantly, if we can attract pension and life funds to invest with us or organizations like us, in turn, what we are achieving is Africa's savings turning into capital for Africa. So AFC represents that opportunity. Indeed, we take quite seriously the responsibility to make sure that these investments are developed properly, de-risked properly, before Africa's savings, namely the pension funds, can and should invest in them. So overall, as I said, I'll end by again apologizing for not being there personally, but I just do hope that the general message that I have conveyed so far holds true during the conference. People in the conference will accept my basic argument that it's time Africa's savings worked more aggressively for Africa's own development, and institutions like us need to collaborate to make that happen. Thank you again, and my colleagues are there from AFC, and I hope that each one of you will have the opportunity to meet them and have a conversation with them, and let's find out new ways of working together. because we all need to make that happen for Africa's own development's sake. Thank you again, and keep well, all of you.
It's always a difficult act to follow Sanjeev, but as he's mentioned, he sends his apologies for not being able to be here today, and has asked me to personally extend his regards to everybody. My name is Wola Asase. I'm the Deputy Director and Head of Syndications at the Africa Finance Corporation. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to the 6th Pension Fund and Alternative Investments Conference. I'd like to extend our warmest appreciation to the Honourable Minister, the government and the people of Mauritius for their generous hospitality over the last 6 years, and also to our sponsors, to our organizers, AMU Trade, all of our co-sponsors, and our partners, speakers, and all the participants present here today. We at AFC are particularly excited to be here again this year to deliberate on the theme for the year's conference, Responsible Investing and Diversification Strategies in Low Growth Environment. It's no secret that African economies continue to face unprecedented economic challenges, and I think Sanjeev has mentioned quite a bit of them, and I think that's going to be a recurring theme through many of the panel discussions in the next 2 days. Global investments and capital markets continue to be uncertain. However, these challenges have also paved the way for us to find renewed ways of investing sustainably, and doing this by employing various risk mitigation strategies. Again, it's no secret that the European market and other foreign sources of funding windows have closed for African borrowers, and we believe that it's time for African capital to work for Africa's development. And we believe that the pension funds industry is very pivotal in making sure that we can get our development in Africa going. Our challenges are not the lack of liquidity on the continent, but it's really how do we find responsible ways of deploying that capital to make sure that that capital is working for us. Unlike the rest of the world, African institutional investors have one of the lowest diversification asset classes. 90% of, I think about more than 90% of investment allocations are in traditional assets. How do we find a way to make sure that we can diversify across alternative asset classes? So the elephant in the room is how do we find a balance between investing in traditional asset classes and alternative asset classes, and to do this in a responsible manner. At AFC, we have successfully implemented risk mitigation strategies that allow AFC to be a platform of choice for pension funds to invest. For the last 16 years, the corporation has developed a track record as the partner of choice in Africa for investing and delivering on instrumental, high-quality infrastructure and industrial assets that provided essential services and drive economic development. We've deployed over $11.5 billion across 36 countries. We've had our A3 ratings reaffirmed in the last 9 years. We drive private sector-led infrastructure investment across Africa, and we've proven year on year that investments in infrastructure can be done successfully and profitably. At AFC, we have witnessed increased appetite by pension funds and insurance groups to invest in AFC, both directly through our equity, but also through co-investments. I think Sanjeev had highlighted a number of them. In 2018, we had the Africa Reinsurance Corporation invest in AFC and have again upsized their investment in AFC in the last year. We've had the CDC of Gabon develop the Gabon Economic Zone with us, which today is recognized as the largest and most successful PPP in the continent. In 2019, CDC invested $50 million in AFC. In 2021, we onboarded the Seychelles Pension Fund. They invested equity in AFC. The National Social Security Fund of Cameroon invested $20 million in AFC. In 2022, we onboarded the Public Investment Corporation (PIC) of South Africa as a shareholder, they invested $100 million in AFC, and the National Pension Fund and National Savings Funds of Mauritius has also invested $25 million as a shareholder in AFC. Through our innovative financing structures, such as our AFB bond program, which is effectively a repackaging program, which allows for us to repack loans into notes and issue them to institutional investors and pension funds, we've been able to crowd in liquidity behind our AFB rating to effectively mobilize funding to make investments on the continent. We've recently launched an infrastructure climate resilient fund through AFC Capital, which is a subsidiary and an asset management arm of AFC, to fund investments that enhance the quality and longevity of physical infrastructure assets on the continent, with the objective of making these assets more resilient to the impacts of climate change while being in accordance with the Paris Climate Accord. Finally, with the addition of equity warrants to our capital structure, asset managers and institutional investors can take advantage of and build advantage of exit features built into the warrant structure to allow them to enjoy higher yielding assets. In closing, we want to take this opportunity to welcome a dialogue with all of you to see how we can work together with the pension funds industry to crowd in liquidity to allow for us to continue to work effectively to develop Africa. Thank you very much, and we look forward to a healthy celebration in the next 2 days.
Thank you very much, Wale. We'll now move on to another sponsor who's been with us for quite some years, the TDB Group, represented here by the President, Alimasu. We'll play a short video to begin with of the group, and I'll welcome the President for a few remarks. Can we play the video, please? Thank you.
Everyone is talking about how to make global growth and development sustainable. We have been financing impact in Africa since 1985. The Eastern and Southern African Trade and Development Bank, TDB, is a regional multilateral development bank fostering economic, social, and environmental development in 22 member states across Eastern and Southern Africa and beyond. We offer short and long-term financing to the region's governments, financial institutions, and private sector, including small and medium enterprises. We're one of the leading and most innovative players in the region in project, corporate, and trade finance, and in driving major syndicated facilities. We also offer export credit co-financing, advisory services, and asset management. The TDB Group is as well known to its own concessional financing window, the Trade and Development Fund, its own TDB Academy, as well as the Trade Fund, ESSECA. Our work helps people and merchandise move across our region faster and cheaper with modern infrastructure. We help our communities access better healthcare by financing hospitals and state-of-the-art equipment. We power our communities with renewable energy and connect people to the internet so that they can study, grow their businesses and their economies. We boost crop yields and food security by supporting agribusiness and even finance the trade of inputs using blockchain technology. We drive intra-African trade and industrialization in our region so that more value can be created at home. To make this happen, we work with investors, development banks, and commercial banks from across the globe looking to have an impact in our frontier economies. In recognition of the triple bottom line returns we deliver, our shareholders, both member states and institutional investors, continue to support our vision. They trust TDB because of its good governance, spirit of innovation, and team of global Africans connected to the world with boots on the ground. Now more than ever, we need to scale up, speed up, and synergize our efforts to build a bright and sustainable tomorrow for our region and the world.
Thank you very much indeed. I would now like to welcome the Master Tedesi, the President and Group Managing Director, to give his welcome remarks. Welcome.
thank you, Master of Ceremonies, fellow panelists, Honorable Minister, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Very pleased on behalf of TDB Group to join others in giving you a warm welcome to this conference today and tomorrow. This is not the first time we have been associated with this Africa-focused pension fund event. We've been involved for several years. I think AFC has also been involved for more than just one occasion. There's a reason why we're so happy to co-sponsor and vigorously participate in this type of conference. Some of the points around this reason have already been mentioned, and I'm going to just go in a little bit deeper. We are living in an age of shocks, shock after shock. The global environment has become very complex, as we've heard. But the silver lining in that is it has given way to much greater regionalization. And I think as Africans, we've become so much more alive to the imperative of integrating in this complex global world we're living in. And so that really explains the importance of events like this, because it's forums like this that help interconnect different players on the African continent to opportunities, platforms, and institutions that can help accelerate that regional integration process that in the long term is the only panacea to us being more immune to these very unhelpful global shocks that are time and time again appending us for no fault of our own. So globalization is very much in question these days. We hear the sounds of decoupling. We hear all sorts of sounds of friction coming through on the global stage. And it's creating so many constraints and so many roadblocks. And so the imperative for us as TDB is to make the best of these crises and double down on our efforts to speed up and deepen regional integration in a number of ways. Fortunately for us in the continent, we're not just waking up now. We've been aware of the importance of regional integration for quite some time. Some of you may not think back to the turn of the millennium when the continent realized that infrastructure had to be dealt with finally, because we've been living in an environment where the foundations of our economic environment were missing. Those foundations being infrastructure. It's been a good 2 decades since Africa has been very resolved to push the infrastructure agenda, and we've been moving progressively forward in that regard. Of course, not as much as we should be moving forward, because there's still a lot of gaps. The heavy lifting requires so much more, but there's been a lot of good work that's been done. But of course, we need to push harder, and in that process of pushing harder, we need African institutional investors to do more of their part by building up the confidence and the appetite to invest in more alternative asset classes like infrastructure. But we know that pension funds, for instance, are not very well suited to doing the origination, to packaging, to de-risking, to mitigating, and you know, packaging those opportunities, those needs into bankable and good investments. This is why institutions like TDB and AFC, there's a few of us who are very specialized in this area. Now, we've had great success as TDB as well, working much more closely with pension funds in a way we really hadn't dreamed it would be possible when we embarked on this vision to reach out to pension funds and do so much more with them. We weren't sure what to expect. That was about 10 years ago. Today we have almost 10 pension funds as our shareholders in TDB, a success story similar to what you've heard from AFC. It wasn't easy for us to build the confidence of pension funds because, you know, intergovernmental organizations, development banks essentially, which is what we are, have not always inspired the greatest confidence, to be frank, because of a number of historical issues. Many African countries have development banks at the national level that have existed for a long time, and their experience hasn't always been great. But the advantage that institutions like TDB and AFC have is because we're highly diversified and we're multinational, our governance structures are far more robust and strong enough to enable very, very good risk management and good decision making. And so that is one of the things that's made us successful as Pan-African specialist financial institutions. That's very, very well suited, we think, to building greater partnerships with pension funds. Not just pension funds, I should mention, insurance companies, reinsurance companies, sovereign wealth funds. There's various types of institutional investors who've come to work closely with us over this past decade. And again, we know that talk is cheap. If this was 10 years ago and I was making a pitch, a lot of people would be saying, sounds good, but I don't know if this thing will work. Well, we're talking history here. We've managed to deliver stellar returns, similar to what AFC has mentioned. We've been paying dividends consistently throughout this period. We didn't even stop during COVID. And one stakeholder said, commercial banks are not paying dividends. Surely you should also be suspending. And we said, no, we're coming from a different history. This particular stable of financial institutions hasn't always had a long track record of paying dividends. So we're going to actually buck the trend and pay a dividend even in these very difficult years. And that has helped us really buoy up the confidence levels that we've always intended to do. And we have a global network of partners now. We even have institutional investors from outside of Africa who've come. And for me, that's really the beautiful story that we have to share with the world is, for once, Africans didn't go out to the world, cap in hand, asking the world to invest in us. This time we're going to the world, we're saying Africa has invested in itself. We've got a great party going on here. You're welcome to join. You can come in and participate alongside Africans who've taken, the first leap forward and done their part to get the party going. And I think psychologically it makes a huge difference, and we know that is how the Southeast Asian miracle happened. The Asians, that part of the world, took the bull by the horns, were the very first ones to start investing very heavily in their region, and then the world noticed, and the world joined the party, and then it just became a great momentum story that we all know is now termed the East Asian miracle. So we believe that the African miracle has a very good chance. It's in the making. There's a lot of very good stories that don't get adequate, visibility or coverage, because we know that news is better when it's bad, it's juicier when it's negative. So people that don't like talking so much about the good stories. But just to give you an example on infrastructure, we have railway projects now cutting across so many countries that didn't exist 10 years ago. And I'm hearing now reports of freight levels going up 400% on some of these new railroads. And those of you who remember the success of the United States before it became the powerhouse that it is today, it happened based on very strong and focused investments in infrastructure, including railroads. And the term back in the US in those days was, go west, young man. But you don't go west on mud. You need roads, you need rail, you need to get that freight to move back and forth efficiently. Today we have amazing projects being rolled out across Africa. It's not been easy, it's been very difficult, very hard macroeconomic circumstances, but they're happening. Fiber optic cables, the same thing. There's a lot of good stories. Not to say that there aren't bad stories. Yes, there have been coups. There's been a little bit of a relapse on some of the democratic projects we've seen. But on the whole, very good momentum. The demographics is on our side. The minerals that we have in Africa is going to give us a whole new opportunity to really come back up very strongly. And the question then is, how do African institutions like yourselves take advantage of these opportunities? It's not going to be through public opportunities easily, right? We know public investment is not easy to find opportunities in, and of course right now with global sentiments, risk is off for anything that's public, right? Private credit, private equity in some cases is the only way to go with the way things are today. So we have a lot to offer in terms of unlisted opportunities, which are opportunities that are much more immune from these horrible volatility and horrible shocks that are really causing public markets to go through a lot of difficulties. I can say more in terms of the track record and what we've done for our investors. We've actually even managed to find unlisted companies, package them, convince those investors to list. And as we've gone into listing, we've made sure that our shareholders, a particular pension fund, had the first right of refusal to take a nice big chunk of this beautiful asset that was held for 100 years in a particular country in Africa that was enjoyed by foreign investors. And those foreign investors agreed to leave after 100 years. We found a way to do a merger and acquisition deal. We enabled the acquisition of the project, and we finally listed it. But when we listed it, we made sure that one of our pension fund partners had the first big bite. And today they're sitting very happy with that opportunity. And Daniel, I'm sure is a TDB executive, was behind that amazing story. Very interesting telecoms project in the Seychelles. Cable and wireless is the name. It's not a secret. Very interesting transaction. And that's just an example of how we also do co-financing. It's not just us seeking inward investment to us. It's how we also manage to hold hands with our partners and help them find good deal flow that makes it worth their while. Very much a pleasure to be here. Sorry if I've spoken too long, but look forward to the day today and tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Mr. Today's really inspiring, and just to underscore the fact that 10 pension funds are shareholders in TDB, and we have been enjoying those dividends, and I hope long that may continue. I'm sure many pension funds will like to also have conversations with the colleagues from TDB, represented here, not just the president and the chairman, but also some of the senior management here. We now move on to the keynote speech by our guest speaker, Honorable Mahim Kumar Siratan, Minister of Financial Services and Good Governance, Mauritius. Honorable Minister, welcome.
Thank you. Well, dear valued delegates from here and afar, captains of industry, members of the press, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed, very good morning to you all, and welcome to Mauritius. Mauritius and Mauritians warmly welcome you to the 6th edition of Pension Funds and Alternative Investment Africa, and I'm delighted to be here today for the opening of the conference. Your presence, ladies and gentlemen, galvanizes us. I must say, the distinguished presence, both local and international, at the annual PIAFRICA events have always been impressive. I understand that there are more than 150 delegates from across 15 countries and over than 40 prominent speakers that are going to participate. The program, whether in terms of themes and the carefully selected panelists, promise deep insights into the topic which brings us here today. The conference will once again welcome some of the top global minds from the investment industry on a common platform to share exclusive opportunities and headwinds for the investor community. Figures clearly demonstrate the need to focus on this hyper-dynamic industry. Total assets under management of pension funds is expected to reach $38.2 trillion this year, according to the Statista, while total assets under management of alternative investment is estimated to reach $21 trillion.
This joint increase over the years is synonymous to a global environment of it was low, now it's picking up interest rates. And indeed, the theme of the conference, responsible investing and diversification strategies in a low interest environment, could not have been more timely. The low yield environment has tremendously shaped investment decisions in the past decade. We have recorded galloping inflation in more recent years, but yields remain at low levels. The war in Ukraine has compounded the problem. Climate change, occasionally natural disasters are hitting news captions on a daily basis with devastating human and economic cost. Thank you. The pandemic, for its part, has brought about the great acceleration of digitalization. Against this backdrop, the medium to longer term outlook presents prospects and challenges to accelerate the shift to a more productive, sustainable, and equitable growth through investment in new, green, and digital technologies. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here to talk about Africa. Africa is a place to be, and we are here to talk about an Africa driven by investments. Investing in a continent with such a high potential for growth makes sense for many reasons. 60% of the world's unused arable land is in Africa to feed the world. Africa has the largest sources of solar, hydro, and geothermal energy in the world. Africa's sources of cobalt and lithium is all set to power the electric cars of the future. By 2030, Africa will be home to 1.7 billion people, with business and individual spending forecast to be $6.7 trillion US. It is forecast that 43% of the population will belong to middle to upper classes, with a higher demand for goods and services. Naturally, Africa is set to become the next factory of the world. The outstanding potential for investment will be ignored. Africa will not wait and can no longer be ignored. In logical sequence, investors are moving focus to Africa to tap into a booming consumer market where investments can find long-term value. You couldn't be in a better place to take the conversation forward, as Mauritius will continue to play an important role for cross-border investments into Africa. The Mauritius International Financial Center is key to driving quality foreign direct investment in the continent. The investment from Mauritius into Africa represents 9% of overall foreign investment into the continent. This conference is highly relevant and timely for us here in Mauritius. Our mantra, Mauritius for Africa, will continue to fulfill its promise of delivering on the Africa we want, as envisioned in the African Union Commission's 2063 agenda. Dear delegates, pension managers, and alternative investment professionals and advisors present with us this morning, I take the opportunity of this forum to invite you all to come and do business with Mauritius. Our mature 30-year-old IFC is a leading asset management hub for institutional investors and fund managers. Our representatives of the Economic Development Board, the headship of Mauritius Finance, and our industry leaders will be present over the next 2 days to share with our delegates more information on the Mauritius side and foreign fund structures. We have introduced activities for regional headquarters and fund and asset management with the introduction of special tax regimes. More recently, we have launched a new product, variable capital companies, which is an attractive structure for various types of funds. Ladies and gentlemen, we are legislating in many ways to improve our standing as an international metropolis for investment, where asset managers and asset owners can safely locate and hub their investment activities and take advantage of new developments in digital assets and ESG-related investments. As Minister of Financial Services and Good Governance, I'm keeping a close eye on sustainability and responsible investments. My ministry is currently working on an ESG framework for Africa to give investors reassurance and enhance trust in our jurisdiction. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to salute the organizers who have so ably brought this local and international distinguished audience together to ponder on a compelling agenda. This annual event is becoming increasingly recognized as an important gathering to help shape the future of investment and leave deep imprints in the development of Africa. I would wish to close by going back to where I started. The World Economic Forum's Global Risk Report talks of the world being a state of polycrisis, from climate change and war to inflation. All these challenges and economic uncertainties are charting a new investment narrative which we are here to prospect, identify, and invest. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for making time in your busy schedules to be here, and I'm sure you will have fruitful deliberation in the 2 days workshop. So I wish all our foreign guests a very pleasant time on the island and a safe trip back home after the event. So thank you again for the time and the kind attention.